Hey, it's Chuck Armstrong with Loudwire Nights, and this is Loudwire Nights On Demand. It is always a blast talking to Al Pitrelli, lead guitarist and musical director for Trans-Siberian Orchestra. Yes, let's get in the Christmas mood together, man. This first aired on Wednesday, September 18th. Let's go. It's hard to believe that we're getting closer to that time of year where you rock out with your Christmas tree out, man, and helping us get in the spirit and the mood of all things Christmas. The one and only Al Pitrelli, guitarist, musical director for Trans-Siberian Orchestra. He is hanging with us tonight. Al, it is so good to chat, brother.
It's good to hear your voice, my brother. How you been?
I've been good, man. Listen, I mean, it feels like just yesterday we were chatting about this, but it's been, almost a year since, TSO was on the road. How are you feeling right now, man?
Pretty good, thanks. The years just keep going by faster and faster, my dad, rest his soul, told me, 50 years ago when I was a kid, he's like, listen, if you're having a good life, it's going to go by in 5 minutes. A lot of truth to that statement. It's going by faster. We had a fantastic year last year. By the second week of January, after we all kind of caught our breath and hung with our families, we started, putting pencil to paper to figure out how do we make this year's show even bigger and better, And then the better part of the year, we've been doing that. And I don't know, about 2 weeks ago, everybody went back to school in the house here. Football season started. Home Depot has Christmas decorations out, and I'm on the phone with you. Here we go.
I love it, man. Well, listen, you said bigger and better. I feel like every year for TSO, the tour, it gets announced as new, bigger, better. And it seems like every year you make good on that promise. How do you guys do that? I mean, because I saw you guys last year. Huge production, just an incredible show. And then you guys take a couple weeks off, and then you start making it bigger and better. How do you guys do this?
I'm going to try to keep this as short as possible. So, okay, the long and the short of it is that Paul O'Neill, the gentleman who created this whole thing, and you'll always hear me refer to him, he was the mastermind behind all of it, okay? And I spent literally half my life with the man in the recording studio and on the road, and he had no boundaries as far as production and as far as musicality, and he didn't want to deal with any specific shapes or boxes or any of that nonsense. He just, in his head, if he saw something, he wanted to try to make it come to life. All right. Now, in the beginnings of this, he would drive us all absolutely crazy because I'm like, dude, you can't do that. And he's like, yeah, we can. Just try it. He was really good at pushing individuals, to be bigger than they already were, to be better than they already were. I'd be in the studio with him. He's like, I need this kind of solo from you here. And I'm like, dude, I can't physically do that. And he goes, yeah, you can. Just try.
Wow.
And he was always right. So when it came to the show and the magnitude and the spectacle that has become this show, he would sit down with our production heads and say, okay, in my head, I see this happening. And they're like, that's an absolute impossibility. He goes, well, let's do it anyway. Humor me. I was like, all right. And after a couple of years of doing that, we just never argued with him again. It was just like, if he sees it, let's figure it out. Because he made us all better at our individual and collective jobs,
Yeah.
So now when you factor in, that education that we all got from him, and when you bring in modern technology into the fold, anything's possible these days. If you can imagine it, it could be done. That would be the equivalent of watching, Cecil B. DeMille's or whoever did, Ben-Hur or the Ten Commandments 60 years ago, and then seeing, Avatar.
Yeah. I was going to say, man, like all these ideas he was having, he was so far ahead of technology. Well, here we are today. And like you said, I mean, just anything you want, anything you can imagine, we can make happen.
And my favorite story with him, I don't know if I told you this before, but we were having one of these conversations where he said he was talking to the lighting designer, a guy named Brian Hartley, brilliant LD, great guy, friends a long time. And he says, I want all the lights to be synced up to Al Pitrelli's guitar solo in Wizards in Winter. Mm-hmm. And Brian's like, I don't know that I could do this, Paul. And Paul, popped out whatever he had at the time. This is going back 20 years, maybe one of the earlier Mac laptops. I don't know. And he opened up this YouTube video of this dude somewhere in Ohio who his entire house Christmas light thing was synced up to Wizards in Winter. Every lick that I played on the record, this guy had nailed. And he did it with a staple gun and a ladder from Home Depot.
Yeah.
And so he looked at Brian, and Brian looked at Paul and goes, I'm on it. Don't worry about it. We'll figure it out,
That's amazing.
And so listen, we were all trained over the decades, and now it's our responsibility, not only to the audience, not only to ourselves, but to Paul's dream and legacy, that we will jump through hoops to make everything bigger and better, And again, technology being our friend, that means the technology is a little bit smaller and a little bit compact, so we could do even more stuff.
That's right, man. Well, and listen, I don't want you to give spoilers away. I know you won't, because everybody needs to see this in person and really experience it. But can you give any hints as far as what is going to make this year's tour bigger and better?
I'd be straight with you, and if I gave you an answer, I'd be lying. So I'm going to tell you the God's honest truth. I don't know.
All right. I kind of like that, man.
No, it's God's honest truth, man. I will not know anything about the production until I walk into the building in Council Bluffs, Iowa, in about a month or so is when we're going to start production rehearsals. I've seen sketches, I've seen drawings, I've heard rumors, But
yeah.
To be honest with you, I don't really pay too much attention to it. I just know that, my managers will call up and say, hey, dude, they're onto something really extraordinary. I need this kind of piece of music for this thing. And I'm like, all right, I'll put the musical side together for you, And they're like, yeah, we need this for this particular, one of the production pieces in the second half. I'm like, oh, this is going to be fun, and then when I walk into the arena for the first, several production rehearsals, I turn into a 15-year-old all over again, walking into arena feeling like I broke into the place and the cops are going to chase me out because I just want to put eyes on what we're up to. It's exciting.
And, that never gets old. You feel that way every year.
Every year, dude. Every year I turn into a teenager. I grew up on Long Island. I used to try to sneak into Nassau Coliseum to see, the Outlaws, Leonard Skinner, the Allmans, Aerosmith, whoever it was, Johnny Winter. Getting chased out by security, the cops, and doing a 40-yard dash really quick to hide. Now nobody's chasing me out of the building, so it's kind of it's exciting, and I feel like a 14-year-old, but I feel a little safer this time.
That's right, man. I love that. Well, listen, tickets for this tour are available at trans-siberian.com. What's it like in that moment for you right now? Because you said, in about a month you'll start rehearsals and all of that. Are you feeling anxiety looking ahead to that, or are you trying to sort of disconnect from anything until that day comes? How do you get ready for that?
No. I have my days allocated to a couple different things. The mornings getting the kids. I have 2 young daughters, getting them off to school. And sending my wife. She goes out to work, and then I got the morning to as we're doing this week, a lot of press. And then when the kids get home, it's, algebra homework and, spelling tests and all that.
Yes.
And then when everybody goes to bed, that's when I get to sit on the couch with my guitar and run, look at the set and say, okay, I got to make sure I know all the guitar parts, the bass parts, the piano parts, the vocal harmonies and all that. So that when I do get to Omaha, I'm very well prepared. Okay. And everybody else in the band has done the same thing, getting prepared, because they know they're not going to show up and not know the part. That would be a bad day for them,
Yeah, for sure.
What we're going to do then is perfect it. And it goes back to the old story, the old saying, Muhammad Ali, train hard every day and fight easy. I don't want to have to think about this thing, when I'm in rehearsals, and I certainly don't want to have to think about parts when we're playing live. That's when I want to present Paul's work to the audience and say, this is how hard we worked. And the audience, it may not be tangible to them how hard we've worked, but they're going to either know that, wow, this is a great show, or, not so good. And I won't deal with the latter of those two.
That's right, man. I understand that. Well, you mentioned Wizards in Winter. I love that story about Paul wanting to sync your guitar solo up to it. That's on the album The Lost Christmas Eve, which this year marks the 20th anniversary of. It's the name of the tour this year. And also, I think I read this right, that with this tour, you will have sold your 20th millionth TSO concert ticket, which is just kind of unbelievable, man. Those are some incredible milestones.
It's so funny, dude. I hear things like that. My managers will call me up and say, by the way, this, and the other thing. I'm like, okay, well, fine. I just, before I got on the phone with you, I was kind of going through my newspaper feed on my phone, and I read this fascinating thing from Louis Armstrong. Okay.
Yeah.
Who, I grew up in that era, and, just a brilliant talent, fantastic individual. And he said, a lot of artists now you're going back to the 60s and 70s with him, but a lot of artists fell out of grace because instead of concentrating on what they loved first, which was the music, they started watching the box office. They started watching all the other things that detract from the purity of the art form. Now, it's a business, but I have, there's people in the organization who do one thing and one thing only. Let them worry about the box office and the history and the stats and the numbers and all that. It's not, I disattach myself, but I kind of don't really think about it too often because the task at hand is to make this year's tour musically and visually spectacular, So, we're going to sell 20 million tickets, or we've sold 20 million tickets. That's crazy. Now I can talk about that with you,
It's unreal, man.
Because 30 years ago when this thing opened its eyes for the first time, I was just grateful to be a part of a piece of music that was extraordinary, for the sake of art. And then the fact that we sold a bunch of records, cool, and then we did another record, sold even more records. I felt like I was in the Steely Dan of Christmas,
Yeah.
We're not touring and we're selling millions and millions of records. I love this. And then we started touring.
Yeah.
And it went from theaters to, I don't know, small civic centers to now multiple nights in arenas. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, man. It really is amazing. Yeah, you can throw numbers around and all of that, but just the simple fact that you see that growth over the years, man, it's
physical growth is important, But at the same time, it's the emotional growth and the connectivity that we have with the audience that amazes me. That like I'm talking to you. You sound as excited as I do about this year's tour. Which, if I'm saying it, man, I'm selling a show. You're saying it becomes gospel.
That's right, man. Yeah.
And people come out. I see the same families year after year, and then every couple of years they got a new family member with them. A baby, a spouse, or whatever. And it's as relevant, if not more relevant now, and as important, than it was when it first started. And I'll always compare it to having a child. Like I have 5 incredible children, 3 of which are all grown up and 2 of which are young, and my oldest son, who's 37 years old, every chance I get, I give him a kiss and I tell him I love him and, be safe today, drive safe, all that stuff, because you never stop being its parent,
That's right.
And the same thing with TSO. Paul might be the parent. I'm just a weird, crazy uncle in the corner.
I love that. Yeah. No, you're right though, man. Like I think about my own, just my personal history with seeing TSO live. I remember taking my then girlfriend, she's my wife now, to the first time either of us saw it. And then last year I took our 3 kids, man, and it was just, it's just incredible. Like it was just,
and
it was
there
incredible.
Let's all grow up together. Yeah,
and
that makes my heart so happy hearing that because, you came with her as your girlfriend. You kept coming back. Why? Not because I told you to come back, because you enjoyed it. There's there's only so much I can say about the show. At the end of the day, it's all the hype before a good fight. You can talk all you want, or before a good football game, but at the end of the day, how was it? Awesome.
That's
I can't wait to come back, and that means everything to me. Thank you.
That's exactly. Oh, well, yeah, thank you, man. And I know I'm not alone, and you said it yourself. You see the same families come, you see the same families grow and grow, and it's really amazing. Do you, as you hear these things, and I, Al, you're the type of guy I know who's always looking ahead, right? Even 2 weeks after the tour ends up, you're going to start thinking about the next tour. Do you take time though to pause and reflect? Like on the 20th anniversary of the Lost Christmas Eve, on 20 million tickets sold, on this or that. Are you the type of guy who enjoys looking back, reflecting on that kind of thing?
Not so much. I do on occasion, when the conversation comes up or somebody brings it to my attention, I can't help but just smile again like a proud parent, But there's so much more to do. I think one of the things that I've accomplished in the last couple of years, and I'm going to be 62, is that I'm very happy enjoying the moment, and then the next moment comes, and I want to enjoy that moment because time has become my most precious commodity, I got a lot more yesterdays in the can than I do tomorrows, and not to be morose or anything like that, but
no, it's just reality, man.
Yeah, it's just reality, dude. I love spending time, with my 2 younger daughters, every day doing something with them. When it comes time for me to focus on work, then I'll focus on work,
Yeah.
I mean, it's always on my mind, in between making SpaghettiOs for the kids or whatever the hell I'm doing, I'm thinking about, God, I got to take another look at that song real quick, or I got to call one of the keyboard players up and talk about this, or the drummers, whatever. I'm a multitasker, but I am getting better and better and better at just living today.
Yeah.
I'll look, and there's that saying, like, don't spend that much time in the rearview mirror of your car. Because you're going to crash into what's in front of you,
Yep.
So every so often, figuratively speaking, I'll look up at the rearview mirror and say, wow, That's been a good run. But I got to concentrate on the larger surface area of the windshield in front of me because I don't want to mess nothing up. And I got a lot to do, and hopefully the journey continues on. I don't know if I got another 30 years in me, but I'm planning on it. And Paul's dream and Paul's wishes were he wants this thing to live forever, long past all of us. So I got a lot of work to do in the meantime. So yeah, I'll look back on occasion. I'm very proud of it. I don't want to make light of it, but tomorrow's agenda will be my priority.
Yeah. Is there a goal that you still have for TSO that you want to accomplish one day?
Yeah, there is. For me personally, I want it to live forever. That's the goal. Yeah. I want to know that, when I physically can't perform any longer or can't do my job at the top of the game any longer, that I know that there's a generation that I help train and teach that will, carry on this vision, And I always compare it to Walt Disney, I mean, what Walt created was breathtaking. I remember as a kid, I must have been 10 years old in 71, 72, when I went to Disney World for the first time,
Yeah.
And obviously Walt passed away not too long after that, but the family, and I forget the gentleman's name who took over, but whatever. But they kept growing that brand. They didn't change the brand, but it kept growing and evolving, to the point where we have so many films, they added so much onto the theme park, yet at the center of it is, the Magic Kingdom. Right?
Yeah.
And I take, we go there every year with my kids. And the familiar portion of it is going on. It's a small world of walking down Main Street or eating a turkey leg or whatever you do in Disney, But then they got the Guardians of the Galaxy ride,
That's right, man, yeah.
So here we are 50-something years later, and the thing still has a very sentimental part of my existence, that I just feel real strongly about. But I'm always excited to see what's new. What are they going to do now, man? You can't do it. Yeah, they did. Very much like Paul O'Neill. So my hope and wishes and, what I look forward to the most is, my great-great-grandchildren will be celebrating this music and say, wow, great-grandpa, what a wackadoodle. But, like how I listen to my heroes, musically who have passed on. Like they'll live forever in my heart and in my ears as long as I can, physically put a record on or listen to something by them. I could have that same conversation with them like they were still alive. That's the one great thing about art. That will live forever. Hopefully.
Amen, man. That's right, man. Well, that's about as good of a goal that anybody could have. Especially for something like this. And as much as you will continue waving the flag for it, man, I know that there are thousands, millions of people who are doing the same thing, man, who want to see it passed down to their kids and their great-great-grandkids too, man.
Yeah, because it's legacies and memories, man. Nobody's going to care about money and accolades. And, yeah, I want everybody to always, I hope, though, one day when we hit the $100 million
that's right.
charitable donation thing, that's fantastic. But if you took all that away, are you still enjoying and celebrating the music? Like when I listen to, Rachmaninoff's Second Piano Concerto, or if I listen to Handel's Messiah, or if I listen to the Allman Brothers live at the Fillmore, whatever it is, as long as I'm still listening to that and people continue to celebrate that work, then that was a good day.
Let's go, man. Al Pitrelli, thank you so much for hanging tonight. I cannot wait to catch TSO on the road this year. Cannot wait to see this year's tour for the Lost Christmas Eve. Get tickets, ticket details, everything at trans-siberian.com. Al, you're becoming a good friend of the show, man. You're welcome back anytime, brother.
Well, back at you, my brother. I love talking to you. It's a pleasure. Love to the family. Kiss those kids and the missus, and I'll see you in a couple weeks or a couple months, whenever it is.
That wraps up this episode of Loudwire Nights on Demand. Stay caught up with everything happening in the world of rock and metal on the Loudwire app and at loudwire.com.